Okay, we have a question here from gas laws, and the question reads, if a gas occupies a volume of 400 cm cube at a temperature of 400 Kelvin and a pressure of 1 atm, at what temperature and pressure would the volume be reduced to 200 cm cube? Now, if you look at the question very well, we can find out that we have pressure, temperature, and volume in play in that question. And you will be forced to say that the formula to adopt is the general gas equation formula. But no, in this case, we have two unknowns, or we are asked to calculate for two variables there, the final temperature and the final pressure. So we can't use the general gas equation because it is used for just finding just one variable between the volume, gas, and pressure. So what are we going to do? We are given the volume, initial volume, and the final volume, and asked to calculate for pressure and temperature. Now let's simply do that. Let's simply write out all the parameters given to us. In that question, we are told that the volume is 400 cm cube. That's the initial volume, and it was reduced to 200 cm cube. And we are also given temperature to be 400 Kelvin and initial pressure to be 1 atm. And they asked to calculate for the final pressure and the final temperature. First of all, since we are given the initial and the final volume, we have to ask ourselves what law talks about the relationship between volume and temperature and also volume and pressure, because we use the known to calculate for the unknown. Since we know the initial and the final volume, we are going to use the volume to calculate for the pressure and also the volume to calculate for the temperature. Now let's simply do that. So we are going to divide this into two. Here will be for the temperature and here will be for the pressure. Now, volume and temperature. What law talks about the relationship between volume and temperature? That's Charles' law that says that volume and temperature is directly proportional, right? So the formula to use here is V1 T1 equal to V2 all over T2. What about for pressure? What law talks about the relationship between volume and pressure? It is the Boyle's law, which says that volume is inversely proportional to pressure. So the formula there is V1 times P1 equal to V2 times P2. Now let's start. Since we are looking for the final temperature, we'll make T2 the subject of the formula, and the formula is going to give us V2 times T1 all over V1, right? Since you are looking for this times this, divided by that. While for this, you are looking for P2, so P2 will be equal to V1 times P1 all over V2. Now let's simply plug our parameters. Our V2 is 200 times our T1 is 400. That will be divided by our volume, initial volume is 400. Now what about for here? V1 is 400 times our P1. Our P1 there is 1 atm, all divided by V2 is 200. Now if we simplify that, this cancel this will be left to just 200, and unit for temperature is Kelvin. What about for the pressure? Pressure is 400 divided by 200. That's will be left with just 2. So 2 and pressure is 80 m. So we've solved for that separately, and we find out that the final pressure of that gas will be 280 m and the final temperature will be 200 Kelvin. Hope you learned something today. If you do, make sure you are following this page. Have a nice day and bye for now. Okay, that's one.